Sooner or later we are going to have to address main character energy and the limits of it, and I thought, why not today? I've got time. I mean, you're on the internet browsing, you've got time. Let's talk about it. So I'm not really completely aware, to be honest, of the main character tropes history. Perhaps some of this has already been said, but this is the small rant that goes on in my head every time I see thumbnails like this. Now, that's not against most of these videos. To be honest, I haven't watched most of them, but I've watched enough of them to get the vibe that while this is a valid mindset for some people who may need it, it's an airport to move through, not a place to pitch a tent. I would like to trace the origins, at least of some of this mindset, for those of us who are big fans of The Holiday. I actually have named my Patreon group after the revelation that Kate Winslet's character has in that film. I think I finally found something resembling gumption. And oh, she did. And oh, she needed it. And it comes from this interaction she has with this elderly friend who tells her that she isn't playing the leading lady in her life. She's playing a side character.
You, I can tell, are a leading lady. But for some reason, you're behaving like the best friend.
You're so right. You're supposed to be the leading lady of your own life, for God's sake.
And that changes the course of that character's journey. Great. Incredible. I needed to hear that at one point in my life. But the context of that conversation is that she's being abused. Now, aren't we all being abused by the capitalist system? Kind of, but I'd say that's at different temperatures depending on who we are, where we are at in life, and the time of our lives. We're not always at a place where we need to hear that. And without a clear signpost out of a mindset like that, I fear we could all be doomed. Well, not that bad. It could potentially not be ideal. Let's not make a headline out of this. The other point unmade there is that you should not have to act like the main character of your life to be protected from abuse or have your rights and needs sidelined. I mean, stories are fun, don't get me wrong, and I think stories are important. In fact, I've been making a career out of stories, working alongside books since 2012. We have now officially deduced that my wash basket cannot hold my weight. Good to know. Soz mate, soz. There's nowhere to sit in this godforsaken country. But the problem with drawing too directly from characters for our lives is that, one, they're not the Bible. This is not an allegory. Literature and films aren't supposed to be parables of how you should live your life, even though they might give you ideas on how you could live your life or how you definitely don't want to live your life. But the problem with drawing too directly from them is really well summarised by a story I heard Brené Brown talk about in one of her talks. She says something like, okay, imagine there's a car, and in the car is a family, the perfect nuclear family. A mum and dad in the front, smiling at each other. They turn the radio up, their favourite song is playing, and in the back are two beautiful children, and they're all singing along, so happy. And the camera pans out, and you see they're in a car, and the car is speeding down a motorway. And the camera zooms out further, and you see the car like zoom by. What happens next? What does your brain tell you happens next? Yeah. Car crash. Apart from millions of families travel down roads listening to music every single day and they just reach their destination. Now, is that a failure of the film industry? No, that's how stories are told. That's how things are made. But she talks about when we read these kind of stories that we see on TV in the wrong way and we translate it as foreboding joy. Just because something is happy doesn't mean that something bad is going to follow it. That's how you move a plot line on, but it's not how life works. The reason good stories make good stories is because you join a character in a very small window of their life usually, and in that small window of their life they don't have their needs fulfilled and they usually move towards having their needs fulfilled or dying, one of the two. And everybody else in their life sometimes have their needs met as a byproduct of the main character getting what they want, but often you just meet them at a different glimpse in their life where they don't have what they want, or they're struggling with something, or you never get to learn what their wants and needs are. Welcome to my landlord's taste in curtains. It's ideas above its station. Kind of like me really, I guess. The good news is life doesn't usually work like that at all. There are sometimes years in your life of seeming inaction where things are like roasting in the background of your brain, or you're recovering from a very storyline saturated couple of years where lots of stuff happened to you. But sometimes people just drive down a road and then they park their car. The way I've seen some of these videos frame being a main character kind of shows and implies that you have to be exceptional to be worthy. It's kind of like a personality version of only beautiful people get treated well, met with everybody is beautiful, rather than maybe everyone, regardless of how they look or how they perceive themselves, should be treated okay, rather than just erasing the category and being like everyone is beautiful. It kind of vaguely whiffs of, I don't see race. I didn't notice you were a woman. Some negative side effects I can see to spending a lot of time and self-care time trying to believe that you're the main character rather than just a worthy human on this planet are, yeah, I made a list, there's 3, okay, there's 3. Everyone likes 3. Truths probably don't come in 3s, but you wouldn't believe that being on the internet. 1, you are constantly searching for an enemy with a face, because every main character has an enemy with a face and a body that they can chase and kill or confront or appease. When unfortunately your enemies are probably intangible and structural and a tiny speck of them is probably in everyone you know. 2, believing that you need to be the face of empathy. So for people to treat you well or for you to get okay things, you have to be somebody that other people would emphasize with, i.e. a little bit blank, a little bit of a main character, which means the everyman, a beige personality or look that everyone can kind of believe is them, because we as humans have very limited reserves of empathy. Build more libraries and we can probably build that up, but for right now, just realistically, they're quite low, even in myself. I'm not saying that I'm better than any of this. And then 3, a failure to put your own suffering in context. Yes, you're going through something, and that is important, but I find putting my woes in the context of the world actually helps me get through things. There are some people who resist looking at their own suffering so much that it's really harming them and they actually need to spend some time looking at that. But again, that's an airport you pass through, and I think generally a great attitude for your whole life is being able to put the annoying things or hurtful or hard things that happen to you in the context of everybody else's, and understanding that it's part of something. And that doesn't mean that it's unimportant, but it is part of something. And I'd love to see somebody cleverer than me think about how that intersects with class as well, because I don't know if this happens in your country, but I'm constantly bumping into people who are like, my grandfather was actually working class. Sometimes that's said in a way to be like, somebody very recently in my family worked for what I have, so I do deserve it, please get your hands off my watch. And the problem with that narrative is that the middle classes are quite new. Most people's grandparents or great-grandparents were working class, and that universal claim on working class, when we see that, while I completely respect anyone's cultural identity to being working class, when we look at the statistics, we know that only 16% of the UK is actually living what we would term a working class lifestyle. All these words need to be improved, but you know what I mean. They're having a working class experience of the economy. So to be the everyman and to be a main character, we feel like we have to be neutral, which means not privileged, not in any way sniffing of riches. And potentially that's also so that we can believe that we're at the beginning of a class transcendent narrative, like Princess Diaries. Oh my god, I didn't realise that I am actually a princess. Or Erin Brockovich or something, where it's like, oh my god, I was poor, but then because I'm clever, I became rich. I think the conversation around being a main character, having main character energy, acting like a main character, can very fast go from treat yourself with respect and take the trajectory of your life seriously to I'm exceptional, something exceptional is about to happen to me, and when it does, it will be because I have bossed self-care and I drew my boundaries like a motherfucking bitch. When like, do love yourself, do draw boundaries, do work hard. But when you get stuff, it doesn't mean it's just because you did those things. And when other people don't get those things, it's not just because they didn't do that stuff. There's a weird Venn diagram to be drawn here about the articles I read about Meghan and Harry and the articles I read about Shamima Begum. Because there's lots of narratives around whether they're good people and whether they deserve the things that we're debating, when their human rights aren't based on your behaviour. They are supposed to be intrinsic. You're supposed to just get the right to live in the country you were born in, the right to privacy and safety. The underlying themes of these articles seem to be, but do Meghan and Harry have main character energy? Did Begum really mean it? She was a minor, treat her like a minor, oh my god. Look, I'm not against a good vlog that's like treating myself like a main character for the day. Or other fun and frivolity, but I think it's also worth having a conversation about how far we take that mentality and at what point we leave the airport and get on a different plane. I don't know who needs to hear this, but your worth doesn't disappear when the credits roll and the big thing that happened in your life goes away. Just because you're happy doesn't necessarily mean something bad is about to happen to you. Your loved ones aren't side characters and they have their own plot lines too. There probably isn't one antagonist out there dedicating their life to foiling your plans, and a story worth telling and a story worth living are very different things, and you can have the second without experiencing the first. Thank you for watching this video. These videos are free to watch, but they are made possible by the Gumption Club, the people who tip me per video to keep them happening. If you like this video and you want to stick around for more of my imperfect, sometimes quite knobby thoughts, you can subscribe below. Here are some videos I think you might enjoy, and until next time, Frog Smug out.